Hey you guys, my name is Alexandra Brooke, but I just go by Lexi. And I did my artist project on Thomas Kinkade. Okay, so let's start with the about him. Thomas Kinkade was known as the painter of light. He was born in 1958 and died in 2012. During his lifetime, he married his childhood sweetheart named Nanette, and they were married for 30 years and had 4 daughters in that time. He also was really close to his brother Patrick. So he was surrounded by women except Patrick. But when he passed away, Nanette, his 4 daughters, and Patrick took over his company to keep his legacy alive. For all of his schooling, he lived in California, though he started doing art and pursuing art at a very young age, following the inspiration of his mentors, Charles Bell and Glenn Westman. But he did do art for a long time, even while he was in school. And he even attended college, 2 different colleges in California. So some relevant facts about him was he died at the age of 54 in 2012, like I said, but he died from acute intoxication, which basically means he died from alcohol poisoning. And then he also was married for 30 years, but when he was 52, so 2 years prior to his death, his wife actually filed for divorce. And 4 months after that, he started dating another woman named Amy Pinto Walsh, who was with him when he died. Fact 3 is a little bit more uplifting. His goal as an artist was, quote, to touch people of all faiths, to bring peace and joy into their lives through the images he had created, end quote. And this was based off of his belief. He was a Christian, and that made him who he was, and that's how he wanted his art to reflect. He wanted his art to reflect that fact about him. Just a fun fact, I love Disney, so I had to include this. A huge reason I love him is because he made so many Disney paintings. But in 2005, Disney actually asked him if he could create a painting for Disneyland's 50th anniversary, and he did, and it ended up being so successful. It's that picture on the left with that big 50. He created that. That was his first ever Disney painting for the Disneyland's 50th anniversary of being open, and it was so wildly successful that he started creating more Disney art. Like that picture on the right is of Jasmine and Aladdin on a flying carpet. That is called a narrative panorama. Oh, that's what he called it, which was basically like scenes from the movie, or just panoramics of the movie that tell a story through his art, tell a story of Disney. And I have some more examples of those later. A quote that I just wanted to share with you guys was, "It's not the world we live in, it's the world we wished we lived in." And that's what Thomas Kinkade said about his art. He created it not as the world that we do live in, but as the world that we wish we live in. And so in that, you can see like this art honestly looks like the perfect world. So this quote just like was really cool to hear. That is the inspiration behind his artwork. Some contributions he made to American culture. I'm going to start by this picture actually here in the middle with the American flag. He painted this as a sign of American pride that he had in our country. He specifically put the Capitol building behind it because he wanted to honor our government, honor the people in our state's capital, in a building that is so important in our state's capital. So he did do a lot of American artwork too that included flags like that. I have a lot of things on his influence. I'm not going to talk about all of them. You can read all of them if you want, but I'm just going to talk about a couple. First thing is because of his mastery in this area, he became known as the painter of light pretty quickly into his, when his work started getting known, like that was a name that he got pretty quickly. And there was at one point in the peak of his career, where it said that at least 1 in 20 people in America owned a piece of his artwork and had it displayed in their homes, which I think is cool that they said displayed, because that means like people wanted other people to see that, like, yeah, look at this Thomas Kinkade work that I have. But he also just influenced the idea of luminism a lot. Luminism was around prior to him, but he really was the painter that sort of like set off the usage of this, and the level of like, oh my gosh, that is Thomas Kinkade level. If I can get my luminism to be there. So he sort of influenced the painting world, especially in America, of like that's the quality of the standard of the painting. Also, Disney, like I just said, that he was contracted with Disney in 2005, and Disney is a huge part of American culture. I mean, it's one of the biggest corporations in America, owns so many different things: Marvel, National Geographic, Star Wars, all the Disney things. It is just such a prevalent American company that he was able to work really closely with. So he had a big influence in that sense. And also, to this day, when you think of Disney artwork, or when anyone thinks of Disney artwork, they think Thomas Kinkade, which is really cool. He also was a self-made man. He started with nothing, and he worked his way up, sold everything he had to start this company, which is just really cool. And it's sort of like the picture of an American dream, and he inspired young artists to do the same. I also want to talk about, he did make a ton of donations to big companies, big relief funds, and partnered with them to support them. And that's a huge way he got his name known by doing that, but also like that is a huge way he influenced America. His contribution to America was that he left a legacy in that way. And a lot of big buildings, big places, famous places have Thomas Kinkade paintings in them because of the impact that he had personally with them through donations and all that. He also did pay some tributes to big social events, we'll call them. Things like, it says Elvis Presley's purchase of Graceland. We all know who Elvis is. So for America at that time, it was a big deal. And he was able to capture that in painting. And he was able to do that with a lot of big social events like that. And while I was doing research, I thought it was really interesting. People often referred to him as America's most successful artist. Now, I don't know if that's actually a name given to him, but he was referred to that a lot, which is really cool because he was born in America, raised in America, and made art of America and in America. He was a painter in the 1990s. His peak of work was in the late 20th century and the early 21st century. So late 1990s to early 2000s is when he really was popular. Not to say that he's still not popular. I mean, his legacy lasted and people still own his artwork, including me. But that was just the peak of his time when he created art. Some artists that were around during his time, I wouldn't say there were similar artists to him, but they were around when he was painting. Pablo Picasso, who died in 1973, was around for the beginning of Kinkade's career. The end of Picasso's career was the beginning of Thomas Kinkade's. Picasso was a Spanish painter, so they didn't have super similar styles, but he was around at that time. Salvador Dali was also around at the beginning and middle part of Thomas Kinkade's career, as he didn't die until 1989. He was also a Spanish painter. He was a surrealist painter, so his work was not super similar to Thomas Kinkade's either, but he was around then. And then another painter was Bob Ross, who was a really popular painter during half of Thomas Kinkade's career, but passed away in 1995, so a little bit before Kinkade did. But although the way that they did painting was super different, because Bob Ross was a television host who taught people how to paint, and Thomas Kinkade was a painter who literally made the most spectacular paintings, in my opinion. But they were around at the same time, and though they did things differently, they were both super influential painters at this time. And by this time, I mean 1990s-ish. His style, he had a really distinct style, because he was known as the painter of light. That was his style. His style was luminism, which I talked about, is utilizing light and incorporating that into paintings. And he did that super well through the use of oil paintings. He did oil paintings with using luminism, which was really cool. And he did phenomenal in it. This picture that I included here, I included it because I think it's one of the best paintings he did to incorporate light. You can just see the light that is literally illuminating the picture from the middle of the picture. And the use of art, I mean, the use of light in that center lights up the whole picture, which I just think is super cool. He did also frequently talk about how much he liked open air painting, and he would actually use that to further his work with luminism. Some of his work, I couldn't pick just one, so I picked a couple. But this one is one of those narrative panoramas, and this is from the movie Pocahontas, and you can just see the way that he uses the light to create this moment, and make this moment come to life. And this isn't actually like you wouldn't watch Pocahontas and see this exact scene, because he made it. Why he calls it a panorama picture is because it tells a story of it's not just a single scene, but it's a collaboration of scenes, a collaboration of the movie that tells a story, hence narrative panorama. This is actually one of the paintings he did after the 50th anniversary of Disneyland. This is for Disney World, and you can see Tinkerbell right here with that little light around her. Tinkerbell's huge at Disney World. And so to just see the way that he used light to emphasize her and use light to emphasize the castle and that rainbow behind her, the castle, and just uses light to make this magical place come to life in a picture. Honestly, like this painting makes it more magical than a picture could actually capture Disney World, which is really cool. This is just one of those other narrative panoramas of Belle and the Beast. And then this is one of my personal faves of all of his. This is The Lion King. And not only is it my favorite because The Lion King is one of my favorite movies, but it's my favorite because of the way he uses light in this picture. You can see in the clouds right here, that's Mufasa. And he uses light to literally make Mufasa glow in the clouds. Like, that's crazy. And uses light to shine on Simba's baby, and uses light to like light up the watering hole in the river and the animals and the trees. Like the usage of light in this particular picture is unreal to me. He also did a lot with seasons, just the seasons and bringing out colors in the season. So this was one of his summer ones. This was one of his winter ones, and his winter ones are actually, as a whole, my favorite collection of paintings because he does so good at making the light reflect off the snow lighting up the people on the ground. Like, if you just look at this, like you can even see the snowman is glowing. The light is glowing, like reflecting off the sun to the ground to this woman. It's just phenomenally done. And that's how all of his winter paintings look. This is a fall one of his, and I chose this particular one because when I was scrolling through, this one like really stuck out to me, and I was looking at it and I was like, man, he used emphasis in this picture because all of the other colors in this picture are pretty toned down, except for these vibrant orange trees in this building, which creates emphasis on this center of this picture, which is really cool. And then this is just one of his spring paintings that just use all the colors, and I think it's really cool how he uses like shadows through the trees and light shining out through the leaves on the ground, because that is super realistic and just incredible detail. And then I wanted to choose a couple of his most famous paintings. This is called Lamplight Manor. And I think I picked this one as one of his, well, this one is one of his tops, but I picked this one to show because it is kind of similar to a lot of his other work of just showing like, this is the world he wished we lived in. This is set in England. This is a little brook that's leading to this quiet getaway, hideaway, as he called it, hideaway in England, that just shows beauty, nature, calmness, which is what he wants to invoke in all of his pictures, which is really cool. And this one is called The Sea of Tranquility. And what he said about this one is that this is not a place. He made that very clear. He said, this is not a place. This is all places. This is all places that live in all of us. We just have to choose to see the Sea of Tranquility and join in the Sea of Tranquility, which I just thought is cool because like it looks like a place, but he didn't make it to be a place. He made it to be all places, and more than anything to be a feeling that we get, which I think he does a really exceptional job. This is The Christmas Cottage, one of his most famous paintings that actually a movie was made about this painting and about Thomas Kinkade from this painting, which is a pretty widely known movie, but no wonder they created a movie because if you can just see the spectacularness of this photo, like it's unreal. You can even see the smoke coming from the chimney. It's crazy. And like the Christmas lights, super beautiful. And this is actually one of Thomas Kinkade's favorite. This is called Hometown Morning, part of his Hometown collection. And he created it to evoke this sense of fondness and memory, remembering community and being grateful for community. Because if you look at this picture, it just looks like they're just one. This tree is just one. They're connected. Again, you can just see his use of light and connecting them, like this reflections in the street just sort of make it feel like it's one picture, which I just think is really cool. But there's so much more work that I could show you. And I encourage you, if you've liked any of his artwork, to look into him more because he's truly incredible. But these are my sources. All of that artwork was painted by Thomas Kinkade. Just want to make that clear. But thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you guys learned something about Thomas Kinkade from this, and I hope you guys have a good day. Bye.